You know, I think it's
Trial and
time. I'm resisting the urge to buy a new computer. So
Yeah, I bought one and my wife talked me into buying an Apple computer, and I'm still trying to adjust to that.
you know, I have an Apple and I love it, but it's 10 years old, which is a long time to have a computer,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's an eternity.
Exactly. I hate spending money on technology. There's like nothing, everything else I'm happy to spend money on, but technology I hate it because it never ends.
Exactly, but you got to have it, and it's work when you want it to work, for sure.
Yeah, now I mean this is exactly, you know, it's like so Franklin's on, you are on, and I'm on. We got that. Did you get a last minute email from Joseph to sign in?
Did I? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just
And
curious.
our partners did also.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Ms. Hauser, I think it was a reminder email.
I'll be right back.
Hi, Franklin.
Hey.
Where are you? Are you on an owl? I see you're in a room, so.
Yes, I'm in the boardroom on the owl. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Let me make a couple quick calls here before everybody finishes joining us.
And Dr. Felder and Rhonda are coming on, right? They'll be panelists?
I can make sure. Is that what you, I assume that's what you prefer?
I think that would be fine. Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay. Joe, can we make sure panelist links get Dr. Felder and Rhonda?
Hey, Franklin, did you need something?
So what Franklin was asking if Dr. Felder and Rhonda have panelist links.
Yeah, let me see. I can resend them if I need to.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful if they were panelists for this.
Okay. Sorry, I had another member of my team shadowing me, so I was talking to him, trying to
Can't hear you.
show him how to do things. I've resent their links now. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Joe?
Yep.
Can you confirm that Miss Purcell is elevated to panelist? I can hear that she's on, but we don't see her.
I don't see her in our attendees group. Yeah, I don't see her in the panelist group either.
Yeah, that's it. The whole meeting's being streamed. Can you resend her the participant link, Joe, so she can make sure she's in the right spot?
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Purcell.
I had to update my Zoom application on my computer. Whatever.
Zoom's business is booming ever since COVID, for sure. You got to keep that updated.
I know. Well, again, when you have multiple computers, then you have to like, oh yeah. I just switch computers. So. There's someone named Jen. Oh, we have an interpreter on. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dr. Felder.
Hi there.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi there.
No. Is everybody on?
Well, how do I turn it on? I don't even know.
I'm gonna hang up because.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So I understand Rhonda's trying to get on. She's working with Ryan Miller to do so.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Felder.
Sure.
I'm here, but I don't have a picture, I'm told.
Yeah, we don't see your camera. Your camera's.
Can you
it looks
hear
like
me,
your
Bonnie?
camera's on.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
That means
And can you
just-
hear us?
All right.
I can't. Ann, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can't hear her.
Oh,
Franklin, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
We can hear you
us,
now.
Ann?
I have been hearing y'all, but I wasn't on.
Okay.
And I don't know how to turn the camera on, so you may not see my picture. Which is okay.
All right. Is it, we're waiting for Rhonda. We're waiting for Rhonda.
Okay.
I just sent her a text to let her know that she can join Franklin in the boardroom.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Maybe, you want to go ahead and get started while we wait for Rhonda? Just, is that okay? You okay? We want to give Rhonda 2 minutes.
She didn't respond yet. Let me try calling her. Hold on.
Oh, can you still hear me, Bonnie?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, well now I can't see anybody, but. Oh my
Oh,
God.
really? That's weird.
She just needs a minute. She's heading down to the boardroom now.
He's here.
Okay. Here we go.
Sorry, everyone.
Not a problem. I've been having issues too, so.
Yeah,
Must be the
and I was
day.
on the phone with Ryan and he can't get me straightened out, so here I am.
You're
Good.
good.
All right, well, I just want to welcome everybody and let's call this meeting to order. Would like to welcome our guests from Hill Consulting. And I would like to ask before we approve the agenda, I'd like to ask for a change that after we approve the minutes, I'd like to give Hill Consultants a minute to introduce themselves and familiarize us and whoever's listening with the firm. Can I get approval on the agenda with that change?
That's a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the minutes, did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes? Thank you, by the way, Neil, really nice job with the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look at them?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, any changes?
None here.
None for me.
Okay. can I get a
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So easy with 3. All right. Now, if I could, Hank is Kathy, right? And
And Ricky, yes,
by
ma'am.
Ricky or Frank? Ricky?
Ricky.
Ricky's fine. Thank you.
Okay, well, if you all would introduce yourself, thank you so much for joining us today on such quick notice. And if you would just introduce yourselves to us and the public, that would be great.
Very good. My name's Hank Hurd. I'm a partner in Hill Consultants. We've been in partnership for several years now. We actually are former finance officers. We're CPAs. Don't hold that against us. We're number crunchers, and that's what we do. But I think the unique thing about us is we're all former school administrators. Kathy was a CFO, associate superintendent in Hickory City. Ricky's a CPA, associate superintendent, Cumberland County. I worked in Harnett County for years, and then I worked at DPI, Department of Public Instruction, as a CFO for several years, and then finished my career next door to you there in Durham Public Schools, and retired back many years ago. But anyway, the thing that's unique about our firm, again, as I mentioned, we're former school administrators. So we basically, the districts we've worked in, and we've worked in 85 of the 115 school districts in North Carolina, doing various and sundry finance, HR studies, yellow bus studies, risk management studies, exceptional children programs. All the major business systems of the school district is what we specialize in. We have a lot of references, and we pride ourselves in trying to make sure our clients feel that they get good value for the consulting work that we do. Nobody wants to hire a bunch of consultants to come in, but we basically try to add value everywhere we go. And having said that, I'll flip over to Ricky and let Ricky and Kathy introduce themselves.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Like Hank said, I'm from Cumberland County Schools. I was born and raised here, military family. I worked here for 31 years before I joined HIL as a partner. And I retired from Cumberland in 2015. And like Hank said, we've been all over the state, and actually 5 states. But as we've aged on, we've limited our work to North and South Carolina because we didn't want to travel quite so much. But hopefully, I look forward to meeting with you all today, and hopefully we'll be able to work for you in the near future.
Unmute. Hi, I'm Kathy Eisenhower. I'm from Hickory. Worked in Hickory schools for 28 plus years, retired, and went into the consulting business. Like Ricky and Hank have said, we have been all over the state and in other southern states, and look forward to speaking with you today.
Let me say also, the 3 of us are obviously the partners in the firm, but we have consultants we bring in on the HR side, risk management consultants. We have yellow bus consultants, Derek Graham that used to work at DPI. We bring in specialists on an as-need basis and utilize their skill sets going forward. So anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to hear about our firm, but that's kind of what we do.
Okay, and just maybe we'll just go around, and just so you know, I think you know us all. I'm Bonnie Hauser. Maybe the rest of you can just introduce yourselves.
Sure. Sarah Smiley, I'm in my 5th year on the school board here.
And Purcell, I'm in my 1st year on the school board.
Monique Felder, superintendent.
Amy, I'm the board attorney.
Rhonda Rath, Chief Finance Officer.
And Franklin McCune, Board Specialist and Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent.
Okay, thank you again all for coming together on such quick notice. Our goal today is to decide how to move forward with this project. As I think you know, we have the committee decided, because of your reputation as a firm and because of your prior work with the district, we said, let's see if we can move forward with you. So right now, we are not putting, this project is not out for bid. We want to talk about getting a proposal from you, which the entire board, which the committee will approve, and then the entire board will approve. So that is our goal, is to get a proposal from you. I invite Ann and Sarah to weigh in. The project was kind of prompted by an unexpected fund balance draw, and so the board decided we'd like to just take a look at our financials and some transactions to understand what happened, And so the things that we came up with, and it's in the minutes, I've sent those to you, Hank. But what would best practices look like for budget process and controls, including what level of detail, and including managing items that are authorized after the budget is approved. Another is sources and uses of lapsed salaries, because a lot of the items that came up were presumably funded through lapsed salaries. Looking at contracts, stipends and TTCs, and use of Title I funds. Those were the initial topics. Anything I missed? Sarah, Ann?
Yeah, and I think I think you spoke to this, but just reviewing the district's sort of budget monitoring and oversight procedures, practices, policies, sort of district level and board level, understanding what are sort of the best practices and where do we have some opportunities to strengthen what we're doing in terms of monitoring ongoing.
Anything else, Ann?
No, I think that covers what we said last week.
Yeah. And so we did talk about having you meet with all the board members, and our executive committee, which is Dr. Felder, Rhonda, and Patrick, to outline a scope of work. And we talked earlier, Hank, we thought maybe you can give us a proposal sooner and then confirm that, and confirm the scope of work in the proposal. So do you want to talk about how, do you want to talk about what would be the best way for you to give us a proposal?
Yes, ma'am. One of the things we in our prior engagements, as I mentioned, we worked in so many districts. We're probably working in 6 or 7 districts right now on various and sundry financial HR studies and so forth. But we have an engagement in what we call, and this would be, it's almost a misnomer to call a Orange County school engagement an initial engagement, because we're very familiar with your district, as you well know. We've done multiple engagements there. We feel very comfortable with your staff. Rhonda and Patrick are recognized across the state as being top shelf administrators, and we appreciate the work we've done there in the past. But basically what we would do, what we call a fiscal wellness check, for lack of a better term, fiscal wellness check, where we come in, look at your budget, look at your last 3 years budgets. We look at your last 3 years audits. We like to work very closely with the auditing firms if needed. The findings that they have, kind of what's going on there. As you mentioned, fund balance is kind of a real hot topic across the state, as a lot of school districts are working with trying to manage their budgets. And we've seen a lot of emphasis on fund balance. And, our main goal is to make sure that you don't have a lot of recurring expenses coming out of a fund balance pool of money. We liken it when we talk to board members and do board consulting. We talk about, if you're spending your recurring expenses from your home budget out of a fixed pool of funds, sooner or later you run into trouble. So you need to have a recurring income source for fund balance type, if it involves salaries and so forth. But anyway, having said that, a fiscal wellness check, again, would probably be a good start. And then from that, we could kind of do a deep dive into the other areas that might present themselves as opportunities. But fund balance is an area that, if it's not monitored very closely, you can slip into being basically where you don't have enough resources to fund ongoing programs and so forth. But anyway, having said that, I think a lot of information is skewed by ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funds in a lot of the school districts we're working in now. I mean, they, for lack of a better term, from a fiscal standpoint, it kind of put a Band-Aid on some issues in the short term. However, September 30th of 24 coming up is going to be the sunset on the 3 money. So a lot of districts are going to be kind of coming back now and looking over where they stand from that perspective and so forth. A lot of districts are having trouble filling the positions that are advertised with the ESSER money. That's been kind of a common theme that we've seen across the state, because the recruitment and retention of staff is such a huge priority. So anyway, that's kind of my initial shot at it. And Ricky, Kathy, thoughts?
Yeah, one reason why we go back 3 years, we're looking at trends. And so if your fund balance is going up or down, why is that? What are the board's goals as far as providing adequate compensation for staff? How would you pay for that? Like Hank said, the ESSER funds, we're seeing instances where folks have too many people in their ESSER funds, and they're going to have to do something over the next 15, 18 months to determine if how they're going to continue keeping those folks or go ahead and have a plan in place to let those folks go. So there's a lot of moving parts. And so we look at the whole picture and try to communicate with the board what those trends are showing. And also a lot of what you're asking for is really flexible as far as it really depends on the board. How much oversight do you want over what we call day-to-day operations? How often do you want to see budget amendments? How much detail do you want in those budget amendments? And it's a wide spectrum. Some boards are not heavily involved in the finance side. Others want to know, what's in the budget. And you have to remember, we're doing a budget before we know what our federal, state, or local resources are going to be. So we're at a disadvantage. So it's always changing. So how often are those changes brought to the board? I think those are the kind of things you're wanting us to do. And there's no one right answer, but we'll look at the different options and alternatives and bring those back to you. Then you as a board will have to decide which path you want to take as far as those types of things are concerned.
Yeah. Any comments, Sarah Ann?
No,
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I was just going to say that it sounds good for them to take the dive into it and then tell us what we need to know and see how much further we want to go or how we want to proceed.
And I was going to say, I think that last point, Mr. Lopes, about the different, understanding some options for budget oversight. And in particular, understanding like even just some examples of those best practices in other districts, like literally what does that look like? Because there's so many ways you can cut the financial data as well. The ESSER money, I think we have been keeping pretty on top of. Like, I think we have a very good sense of what's potentially recurring in there. It's probably not as bad as some other districts, but there's definitely some money in there. So that's not a place where I think we will need a lot of additional information. It's really sort of more in the rest of our budget, and the place that we have been going to, I think more recently, is lapsed salaries as sort of a additional place where we could, to the point about teacher shortages, we have these open positions, so using that money for other things like stipends and whatnot. So just, yeah, those are my reactions.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Sarah, on the it's the balancing act of lapsed salaries and the fund balance, because what happened is things that we thought were being handled through lapsed salaries, all of a sudden we're going through the fund balance. And so we really do want to deep dive, I think, into lapsed salaries and stipends and temporary terminating contracts in particular, because it seems that when you looked at lapsed salaries, it's where's the money coming from, and then how is the money being used? Because these seem to be areas where we're running over. The other is contracts and the use of Title I funds. So, because was some of that's being used for salaries that were, so anyway, those are the kinds of things we'd like to take a look. So it's a little bit of a deep dive into some of these transaction areas. I think those were the top ones. Again, lapsed salaries, contracts, stipends, TTC, and Title I. But to go into the transactions and finding out how that money is being used. And that going back to the original question about when should the board be approving it and when should the board stay out of it? What is the authority of the board for the superintendent? Because
yeah, and for lapsed salaries, which is so much harder to predict than so many of our other potential sources, what are like the guardrails around that, or the ways we should be monitoring that piece? Because I think we're we've been tapping into it, my sense is, more than we have in the past. So, yeah.
Yeah, if anything, COVID has, with all the turnover, COVID has made that a much bigger funding, you know, a much bigger amount of money. So that's why we're concerned about it. I have a question. Anything else? I mean, that would be the kind of basics of what we're interested in. And part of the question, you know, if I was a consultant doing this work, I'd want to know what information is available to us. And I just didn't know if it would make sense for Rhonda to spend time with you all to talk about what data she has available and if it's not, what it's going to take. And Rhonda, is that something that you can do?
Absolutely.
I like the idea of looking at the last 3 years so that we get an overall picture of everything.
There's also an HR component to this, because if you're dealing with lapsed salaries, how is that, when somebody leaves, how is that communicated so that you know you do have a lapsed salary? What's the funding source of the person that's leaving? Do you have the flexibility of converting that to supplies and materials? So it is the bottom line is it affects finance, but it also could be a process procedure type thing as to finding out as quickly as possible that those lapsed salary dollars are available. And so that's one thing we'd also probably want to look at, is that process of how that's communicated between the two departments.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking about lapsed salaries, sources and uses. So if we have teachers leave school or staff leaving a school, then, and that frees up the funds, how are the funds being used? All right, is it being used, you know, to say, you know, it's kind of a weird thing, we don't have a policy around this, but the funds stay with the school, or does it get open? Right.
And that's a good point. Do you let the funds stay at the school, or do they come back to the district to be redistributed? And so that's something, once again, that you as a board would have to determine. But that's an excellent point, is how do you use the dollars that come out as a result of the lapsed salaries?
Yeah, sources, and, you know, according to, based on the board meeting that we had, it's probably, Rhonda, was it roughly back of the envelope estimating about $200,000 a month in lapsed salary. So it's a substantial amount of money, you know, of course, exacerbated by COVID. And the effects of staff shortages. You can make a practice out of this. Lapsed salaries reviews.
Well, I'm glad you have Title I in this study, because what we find, unless Orange County is different, since COVID, the Title I balances have gotten pretty high, because they've been able to use other sources to provide the same services to kids that would ordinarily get them from Title I. And so you can't look at Title I as a silo. You've got to look at it as part of the whole system. So I think you're to be commended for having the foresight to include Title I analysis as part of the overall financial analysis.
So do you all think you could get a proposal based on what we've told you?
Yes, ma'am. We'll get our thoughts together and try to get you something by, hopefully by Friday. You said you're trying to, you wanted it by the end of the week.
That would be great. I mean, the board chair has said that I think we want to get back, we want to review it back with the committee. Does everyone want to, do we want to review it and before it goes to the board? Yes.
I think ideally, yeah.
And
That would be fine. That would be fine with me, just to be able to look it over and see what they say.
Yeah, and the board chair said,
board attorney, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the board chair has said that he'd be willing to call a special meeting to approve this. We don't want this hanging over the district. We'd like to move it quickly. What did you call it? A financial health wellness study, yes? Or financial.
Yes.
Fiscal wellness check is
Yeah.
the terminology we use. And
Yeah, I like that. And we do, Orange County has made a meeting room available if you would like a workspace in Hillsborough.
Okay.
Orange County said we'd have it starting tomorrow, starting the 6th, starting Thursday, and through the middle of May. So that would be available to your use. We're getting a key for you.
okay.
And would the proposal include sort of high-level process and timeline, I imagine?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
So I'm assuming you'd want a delivery date. It's April now, obviously. So we would hope to finish up our initial work with the fiscal wellness check by within 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm looking for Ricky and Kathy's reactions because we got several projects going on.
Well, we got the week of
Also,
Easter.
we have the week of Easter.
You have the week of Easter, so that
Oh,
week.
yeah, okay, so
So it would really get
Maybe
started after
3.
after that. And so I'm thinking this is in phases. The general review would be the fiscal wellness, and then the deep dive. I'm just thinking out loud. The deep dive would be after we do the general review. So the
Yes.
first phase, yes, I think we could do, probably by the middle of May, early part of May, but then the deep dive is going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm at the initial fiscal wellness check. Because that'll precipitate what will be involved in it should the board decide to use us to go further at that point.
So when you say deep dive, does that mean the deep dive into lab salary sources and uses would not be in phase 1? Or would that be in phase 1?
No, we'll do some observations and recommendations in our phase 1 that'll take a look at that, but there may be some additional more detailed work required after that.
Okay.
Thoughts, Ricky, Kathy?
Yeah, really the fiscal wellness check, for lack of in summary, is to make sure that things are okay financially in all your funding sources. And so once we see what's available or not available, that tells us where we need to look at further. And then the lab salaries, of course, would be the second part of that. We say, well, even though there's a shortfall over here, we are generating $200,000 a month in lab salaries that can fill this gap or that can fill this hole. So we don't want to look at it in isolation. We want to look at the lab salaries as how do those dollars tie into the whole budget that the board has access to either give back to the schools or use as a school system. But the initial analysis would be to look at it more from a high level, and then after that we'd get down into the weeds, so to speak.
So as we proposed engagement letter, do we need to email that to Neil initially for him to review, or what's?
I think that would make sense. I do want to take a look at it, and required by policy to review most contracts anyway. So and then I could give you all feedback and work on the front end if there's if there are issues, legal issues I see. I assume you have pretty standard engagement letters, so it should be pretty quick work. And then we've worked in several of the districts for Tharrington Smith, so you shouldn't be much trouble. Yeah, absolutely. One question, Bonnie, at the last committee meeting, there had been discussion about soliciting feedback from individual board members, not just members of the committee, and also from Dr. Felder and Mr. Obley and Ms. Rath on the scope of work. What I'm hearing, this discussion a little bit different. Just wanted to sort of frame that as the idea that the phase 1 review would be this fiscal wellness check with a focus on the items that we've discussed, and then would we build into the agreement there would be that additional solicitation of additional perspectives for a phase 2 possible review, understanding that has to come back to the board, or do you want to just hold off on that and say phase 1, give us the phase 1, and then we'll contemplate phase 2 when we get to it?
I would like you all to include a conversation with the board, and it could be brief.
Okay.
I think it could be 15 to 30 minutes on the phone or in person, however they prefer to do it. And with Dr. Felder, Rhonda, and Patrick to do that, because if something comes up that's critical that we'd like that in phase one.
Okay.
And you may come back to us and say, you know what, we want to expand phase one.
Okay.
All right, but I'd like the board, everyone on the board to weigh in. Sarah and Ann, do you agree with that?
Yeah, just clarifying when you think would be the best time to do that, Bonnie? Are you saying it's part of phase one or prior to signing an agreement, or?
We thought it was going to be prior to signing the agreement, but I think if I'm hearing correctly, that it would be better for, it would be easier because it would be easier to make that as part of the project.
Part of the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes, I mean, it makes sense to me to have that be sort of a step in the work early on to.
That's sort of what I was thinking, is that if you're asking your consultants to do some work, we really need the board to approve the contract that authorizes them to do the work first. And if the phase one review and soliciting individual views and meeting and consolidating that and coming back with thoughts on a phase two review, that sounds like consultant work. So it makes sense to me to say, we try to get the contract. Goal would be get the contract engagement letter in good shape for board review on Monday. And then if the board approves it, then phase one starts, and that can include at that point, talking to individual board members briefly to think about a phase two.
I think that sounds like a plan.
Who do we address the proposal to? Who's the contact, the lead? Is it to the board? Is it to Dr. Felder? Who, how do we,
Your client is the board.
Okay.
And I don't know if it should be I think it should be the board, right? Because
Yeah.
you're on the Board of Education.
Okay.
I'd address it to the Board of Education, and assuming the board approves it, it'll be signed by the chair and superintendent.
Okay.
Their custom.
Well, we would be excited to start this work. And again, one thing about our firm, we hit the ground running, and we know what we're looking at immediately by having our backgrounds, and we're very familiar with your district also. I think that'll be very helpful.
Yeah. Do you want to talk to Rhonda before you put your proposal together, or do you want to just draft something?
If that would be appropriate, we probably would try to confer with her.
Yes.
We know her very well, obviously. So, but if that's permissible with the board, we would do so.
It's okay with me. Anyone have a problem with that?
I do not. I think he needs to talk with everybody he needs to, and certainly that makes sense to go ahead and have some conversation with her so he can get a little bit more background.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, anything else that, let's see if I have anything.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. I look forward to working with you.
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank you very much for meeting with us this afternoon.
Yes.
We've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for responding so quickly, and for everybody for responding so quickly. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
Bye-bye.
can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Franklin, for your help.